Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, thanks to the team over at ShowZ, we're going to be taking a look at the ToyWorld SKYBURST WW1 Transformers Jetfire. Now for those of you looking to add this guy to the collection, I'll of course be sure to include links down in the description box below, and apparently this is ToyWorld's last release. I'm not entirely sure of that, but it does seem to make sense. We haven't heard any updates on their ToyWorld chatter, and this does conclude their Build-A-Figure WW2 Starscream. And talking of, here we have the final Build-A-Figure piece, and it looks awesome. Now I do believe this is completely identical to the Red Baron that I reviewed around about this time last year, so if I can find all of the other Build-A-Figure pieces that I have scattered across the house, I may actually do a comparison video. But this is of course in the more movie accurate silver deco that we see Starscream have in Revenge of the Fallen and the first film, and it looks really cool. I'm not gonna lie, the paint detail does look sick, but you guys are all here for Jetfire, so let's delve straight in. Now I believe this is a World War I or World War II ship. I think this is the HMS Warspite, and it just looks absolutely incredible. I mean, the fact they got the Revenge of the Fallen Jetfire design into this ship is mind-blowing, but sadly it's ToyWorld, so I do have a few comments in regards to the quality control and overall tolerances. As you can see, we do get this display base, which for some random reason doesn't have any writing here on the plaque at all, which is unfortunate. Now this is very easy to remove. It is held in via two tabs which do slide into these slots. But as you guys can see, an amazing looking battleship. It does actually have some die cast, especially here towards the front, and ToyWorld always continues to amaze me with their paintwork. It's just a shame their plastic isn't up to par, but very nice detail. I think the wood texture looks phenomenal. We've got loads of different turrets scattered throughout this thing, and in all it's just such an amazing looking ship. You can see some lifeboat detail, loads of cannons and turrets on this thing, and some sick looking propellers here at the back. So in all, fantastic. Now some of these can actually articulate, so you can rotate the turrets around. These sections themselves are slightly fragile, I'm not going to lie, so I wouldn't recommend articulating them too much. We do get some die-cast pieces such as this section here at the front, and I would definitely be cautious of some of these sharper pieces that we have here at the top. I don't think they would break if you were to accidentally bump into them one or two times, but if you were to apply too much pressure in the wrong place, absolutely they would snap clean off. Now for some weird reason this section is very loose, which is a shame. It should actually peg into this. I'm not too sure why there wasn't a locking mechanism, so that does get on my nerves, but very nice weathering detail. I think just in all, a fantastic looking battleship. Now he also does come with weapons. As far as I'm concerned, they can't actually store in the ship mode, those being the axe that we see him use in Revenge of the Fallen, very nicely painted as well as sculpted, and a walking stick or cane, although it doesn't have any kind of landing gear like you would expect from Jetfire, considering this time round he is a battleship, but still very nicely painted as well as sculpted. And like I said, I can't see any spots here on the underside as to where they would tab in, but you can combine them to create a larger axe weapon. So we basically do just take that section, hinge it up, and this piece here will snap there into place, and there we have the battle axe, which we'll touch base more with when we actually get this guy into robot mode. And talking of, let's get down to transformation, as I believe that pretty much wraps it up here for the battleship mode. So to kickstart things off, you're going to want to come around here to this side, take these sections here and just hinge them up. It can be a little difficult, but you're just going to want to untab them just like that, and come around to this side, rinse and repeat. And now comes probably a saving grace of the transformation, but to be honest it's a little lazy. You're going to want to take this section here, lift this up just to loosen this entire section, and basically just untab all of these sections. Now it can be a little difficult to actually get a hold of this, but just hinge all of this up, and as you guys can see, it's come clean off. Now it is supposed to do that as it will actually combine with the Studio Series Optimus Prime, but when you transform this thing for the first time, if you're anything like me, you're gonna poo your pants, as I actually thought I'd broken it, but no, it is held in via a C-clip, and you could technically transform it with this attached, but when you try and untab it, 9 times out of 10 it's gonna remove, and it just makes the transformation way easier to set this here off to the side, and that really does allow us to focus on this. So to kickstart things off, you're then going to want to take these sections here, hinge those out to the sides, come around to this side, and rinse and repeat. We can then split all of this here and just hinge the hips up. Now, whilst I'm transforming this, you guys are already going to be able to tell some of the massive QC blunders that this product has, and it's all got to do with the tolerances. Some things are just way too loose than I'd like. What you're then going to want to do is come around here to the front, rotate at the thigh. Now, 9 times out of 10, these will actually pop clean off, and that's because these two also do detach for the Jetpower Prime Combine mode. But again, I really do wish they could have found a better way of securing these. So rotate that. And then what we can do is hinge this section up, take this piece here, collapse that down. That will then allow us to collapse this section down. We can then come around to the back of the leg. You'll then want to open this section up, fold this around just like so. Now, the cannon you can leave in this configuration or rotate it up. Personally, for transformation, I would recommend rotating it up just so that these actually have some kind of support and that you don't accidentally grab them and hinge them down and snap them off. We can then come to this section here, disengage this piece, and then at the same time, rotate this section around and just snap it into place like so. What we can then do is take this section here and just attach that, fold out the side sections of the feet, take this piece here, hinge this to the back, flip the toe forwards, and all 3 of these pieces are die cast. So I thought that was pretty cool. What we can now do is take this section and hinge it backwards, and this slot should in theory peg into this tab, although it can be a little difficult to do, but just snap that in there like that. We can then take this section here, hinge that down just like this, and now basically this tab here will peg into this slot. So let's snap that into place just like that. And that is basically one of the legs fully transformed. So rinse and repeat the same process on the opposite side, so that we now have both of the legs configured like this. And as you guys may already be able to tell, there are some very loose joints going on here, which again is a shame, especially for a $150 figure. Next up, we're going to turn here to the torso. So you're going to want to take these pieces and just hinge those out just like this. We can then take these pieces and hinge these down as well. Now, this entire part of the transformation again can be incredibly frustrating, and it's mainly to do with the clearance, especially where the head's concerned. So you're going to want to take these joints here and basically just hinge those down just like this. And now comes the challenging part of actually pushing the head through these sections. So first of all, I would recommend hinging this section down, and then this piece. We can then pull the head down, fold out the beard and the whiskers, and so far so good. That's actually the best attempt that I've had of transforming this without it bumping into any of this. Now what we can do is take these pieces, straighten this out, and this will actually tab into a slot here. So click that in there. We can then bring the shoulder down and just collapse all of this in upon itself. And as you guys would expect, this is going to tab into this slot here. So let's just snap that there very securely, rotate here at the bicep, and then just rotate the hands around so that we're left with something like this. Do the exact same here for this side. So hinge this section down, tab that there into place, and then this section will actually tab into this piece, just solidifying that. I believe that is something I missed on this side, so just go back and snap that in there. We can then fold all of this here in upon itself and just click that into place, rotate here at the bicep, and in theory that is the core body of Jetfire fully transformed. Now of course we don't have the back attached, so let's get down to business in regards to this. So to kickstart things off, you're going to want to take these sections here, and they will actually extend. That will then allow us to rotate this here down. Now it can be very difficult to do considering that there is a lot of stuff actually bumping into one another, but just fold all of this up just like this. Do the same here for this side. So extend this forward, rotate that, and then flip this up and hinge this down just like this. Now what we can do is bend here at this section, take this here, rotate that like so, and just collapse it. I want to say that it collapses like that, so just collapse all of that in upon itself, and then this one will come down, this one will come over the top. So we're left with a configuration which is along the lines of this. Now we can take these two sections, split them, and hinge them here out to the side. And now comes one of the worst parts of the transformation. Basically, these pieces are die cast, but this tab massively gets in the way, and you kind of have to flex the plastic, and I just do not know how this pin joint and plastic is going to hold up over time to flex that tab out of the way. So just collapse that along the side. Do the same here for this piece, just like that. And now comes the finishing touches of taking this, launching this back, and now let's just combine it. Now, like I said, you can transform Jetfire with all of this attached. Personally, I just find it way easier to remove this, as 9 times out of 10 it will just attach when you're transforming him anyhow. So let's just fold this section up. Now, this can be a little tricky, I'm not gonna lie, to reattach, but just try your best to align that up. Click it in there just like that. So it's actually way harder to peg it in than I was expecting, but then we can just straighten out all of this torso, which has sadly collapsed in upon itself. And now what you're going to want to do is hinge this section down like that, and then this slot here will peg into this tab, and all of this will tuck into this hollow cavity. So just thread all of this through and snap this section there into place. We can then take these pieces, angle them here to the back. You'll then want to take this turret, hinge this section forwards, rotate this around, and do the same for this side. Take this piece, hinge this to the back, just like that. And there we have the ToyWorld SKYBURST WW1 Jetfire fully transformed up into his pretty cool looking robot mode. And as I said beforehand, overall the figure looks great. The way the design team were able to take that Transformers 2 Jetfire design and almost seamlessly integrate it into a battleship from an engineering perspective is almost mind-blowing. But as ever with ToyWorld, they continue to be let down by their incredibly poor quality control. This figure has joints which in some regards are way too tight and in others way too loose, which massively compromises the enjoyability and stability of the figure. Now, as we dive in and take a look at the details, instantly recognizable as Transformers 2 Jetfire, which I think is fantastic, especially considering that his alt mode is completely different to what we actually saw in the film. But I will be honest and say the color scheme does just look very bland and boring, and I think it could have been massively spruced up, at least here in bot form, with some metallic silver. Had they added some dry brushing to the forearms, and especially here for the face, I think that could have done wonders, as this entire piece does just look like a big lump of charcoal. Now, I do like the whiskers, I like the kind of rusted detail that we have here for the beard, that all looks cool. The eyes do become lost in the sculpt. It was an issue that we saw with the Studio Series version, so I am left to believe that this has literally just been pulled from that original figure, but very nicely sculpted for the most part. Not too sure why he still has the jet cockpit here for the head. I guess they were trying to stay faithful to the character design. Really nice sculpt work here for the chest, but again, would have been massively improved with some metallic silver just to make it look a little more visually interesting. I do like the detail that we have for the biceps, as well as for the forearms and the hands. Again, why he has these kind of turbines is completely beyond me, but I guess it looks cool. And I really do like the legs. I think the legs are by far the most visually interesting part about the bot mode, just because they actually have some color in them. Had they found a way to have integrated some of the color that we have jam-packed in the backpack into the front, I think he could have come across a little better. Now, we do get these massive turrets here over the shoulders, which I think look pretty cool, and despite him having a shed load of kibble jam-packed into the torso, it does actually sit pretty flush and nothing really sticks out. I mean, these pieces are kind of accurate to the Revenge of the Fallen Jetfire design, as he did just kind of have pieces flaring off. So in all, very nicely done. I do like the shape of the legs, that looks cool, but as you guys can see, there is a gap in between this panel, and it doesn't take much at all to disengage this tab from this locking mechanism, which can make him a little unstable, and the joints are just absolutely atrocious, I'm going to be honest, especially this ankle pivot. This is so loose, and this guy isn't light. I mean, the upper body is actually pretty heavy, so the fact that these are not on ratchet joints is just nuts. And I know this guy is supposed to scale with Studio Series figures, but the price doesn't reflect that, and we actually get proper ratchet joints on those SS figures, so why ToyWorld couldn't have implemented something similar into this guy is beyond me. And it's not even like I can take a screwdriver to tighten that up, as it is a pin joint. So again, such a shame, and you guys will just see how kind of loose and floppy he is throughout this review. And these pieces actually have die cast in them as well, so it doesn't help that tiny little friction joint. Now, talking of articulation, we merely do just get a ball joint here at the head, which can only tilt left to right. It can't actually look left to right, so very limited, but the beard can articulate, so I guess he has mouth articulation. Behold the glory of Jetfire! Jetfire! We also do get a rotation here at the cannons. They can also hinge up and down. Rotation at the shoulder, hinge joint out to the side. Rotation here at the bicep, double joints out of the elbows. Rotation at the wrist, and the fingers are articulated, as so is the thumb. Nothing out of the waist, as you would expect due to how he transforms. The hips are very loose. I mean, they will kind of hold their position, but it doesn't take much at all for them to droop down, so that's a shame. They can also kick back, but again, will not hold their position due to them being on friction joints. They can also hinge out to the sides, which surprisingly is actually holding up a lot better than I was expecting. We do get a rotation out of the thigh, but as you saw during transformation, this is detachable due to the combination mode, so will 9 times out of 10 just kind of wriggle out of place and will more than likely fall off. So I do wish there was a better way they could have actually snapped that into place. Double joints here out of the knees, but again on friction joints, that really loose pin joint that I mentioned earlier on, as well as an ankle pivot, which on this side is very loose. And then finally, as you guys can see, these toes can kind of articulate, but that's mainly due to transformation. So in all, design wise, he looks cool. Definitely Jetfire from Revenge of the Fallen, but I do wish some of this kind of charcoal color could have been spruced up with a bit of metallic silver, and they definitely needed to put some ratchet joints in these ankles, as it doesn't take much at all for him just to droop and fall backwards. Now, accessory wise, we do get the cane. As I showcased earlier on, you can actually combine them into a larger weapon, which doesn't look too bad at all. But if you're going to stay truthful to the character design, you're going to turn this into a walking stick. Now, basically, he holds onto this piece, and this is what he balances on. Now, to me, this looks really ugly. I don't know why they couldn't have added an additional hinge joint so that this could have laid flat on the ground, as that just looks really bad in my opinion. But it does basically just peg into a slot here. So that's kind of cool, and we do get the axe, which again works with that same tab and slot locking mechanism. So with that being said, let's turn to some size comparisons. And first up, here we have him alongside the ToyWorld Bulldog, which I think was their first release, and without a doubt their best. So here we have that comparison. Here he is alongside their version of a World War II hot rod, and Jetfire is supposed to be roughly Studio Series in terms of scale, so I think a deluxe to leader ratio, at least between these two, works out to be pretty well done. Their World War II Bumblebee, Hasbro Deluxe Class Cogman, and finally a Studio Series Voyager Class Optimus Prime. Now, I would love to give you guys the Studio Series Jetfire comparison, however, after I finished my Fallen review, it did actually break, so it's super glued in combine mode on the shelf until hopefully I can source another one. But just so you guys can see, looking pretty decent, at least in terms of that Studio Series scale, and we're going to need this guy for the next segment, as you can actually combine these two. Now, next up, we turn to the Jetpower Optimus Prime combination, and a few things worth mentioning is that the instructions are absolute trash, so I'm going to try my best to showcase the transformation and combination, but just note that there might be a few things which are slightly off, but I'm sure I've got it down to a T, and you are specifically going to need the SS05 Prime and not SS32. So, Optimus, take my parts, and to kickstart things off, you'll want to take the shins, rotate these sections in, just like that, and do the same here for this side, and that is basically Optimus prepped. Next up, we're going to take Jetfire, and if they haven't done so already, wriggle the thighs away from the hips on both sides. Now comes a few challenging aspects, so you're going to want to lift this piece up, take this section here, hinge this out, and that will allow us to dip this all the way down. You'll then want to take this section, open this up, and pry this piece out. Now personally, I would recommend bringing in the aid of a screwdriver, just so that we can really get in there and flick this up, as it is very difficult to do. So hinge that section there all the way up, just like so, and that is one of the legs prepped. Do the same here for this side, so hinge this up, rotate this section down, hinge this open, and then take that screwdriver and flick this section up. Now this can be kind of challenging, as we're going to now combine the legs with Prime. So this section should slide into this hollow cavity, however it doesn't at all. It barely just rests in there. The entire connection is held together via this tab, which is going to shoot into this slot, and then this tab will slide into this slot, so definitely can be a little tricky. I would recommend to really tab this in here, just like that, dunk this down, and then try your best to align this section here up. So snap that in there like so, and once you're done, just give this another firm push to try and make it stable, although as I said, it really doesn't lock in all that well, which is unfortunate. Now we turn to the next side, which is going to be a little more difficult, just as a few things get a little clunky. So let's just lock this section here in, and then bring this around and tab that there into place. And now what we can do is bring all of this down, lock that there into place, very fiddly to do, and those are the legs fully installed onto Optimus. So definitely the more easier part of the combination, and as you guys can see, even that was fiddly enough. And then we're going to bring in the big boy, the big torso of Jetfire. So basically you're just going to want to take this section here, lift this up, we can then detach all of this as we did earlier on, and like I said, this is merely only held on via a C-clip, so we can just pull that there clean off. Next up, you're going to want to take these sections, rotate those around, and they are actually held in via a tab, so you're basically going to want to take here where the turret is and slide those off, although you do require quite a lot of force to actually disengage those, so I would recommend maybe applying a little bit of oil or just something to loosen that up. Do the same here for this side, so slide that up. Now we can actually take these clips and hinge those outwards. So let's hinge that out just like so, angle that down, and do the same here for this side. So just fold out that clip like this. Now you're going to bring back Optimus, and these are going to slide over the top of these cylindrical pieces. Now I do have the premium finish version, so I do think maybe the metallic silver could potentially scrape off, so I would personally recommend using the regular release, as if my memory recalls correctly, it is just normal plastic. But these are just going to slide over the top of these pieces just like that, come around to this side and rinse and repeat. So do the same there, and in a nutshell, you could basically take this configuration and apply it onto SS32, although the next step does specifically require us needing these back tabs, as we are now going to configure the backpack. So for this, you're going to want to make sure that these pieces are dead straight, as these are the tabs that are going to shoot directly into Prime's backpack. We can then take these sections here, angle these up, and these will actually fold over the top of these sections, and I think that is pretty much this piece fully done. So then angle the backpack up, these tabs are going to shoot into those slots, so snap that in there and just compress this along the backpack, and there we have the back of Jetpower Prime. Now this looks ugly. Like I said, this is really the only reason why you need SS05, so if you don't like the way this looks, use SS32, as I'm going to be honest, this looks pretty bad. And then for some finishing touches, we bring in the big part of Jetfire, which, as you guys could probably guess, is going to transform into the cannon. So to kickstart things off with this, you are going to want to just close up the whiskers, hinge this here to the back, make sure that this is sticking out, as this is actually the tab that Prime will hold. Fold down the beard, we can then take the hands, hinge all of this out just like so. We can now disengage the shoulders and hinge these here to the back and up and over the top of the head. So do the same here for this side, hinge this up and over the top of the head. You'll then want to make sure that these pieces are still left flipped out, however the whiskers or the beard is splayed open, just so that it allows for enough clearance for us to collapse all of this over the top, so that we're left with something which at the moment looks along the lines of this. Now for some finishing touches, we can angle this down, rotate here at the bicep, and then take the hands, rotate those like so. Do the same here for this side, so rotate there and rotate at the hand, and there is a tiny tab that is just going to rest into that slot. To be honest, the connection is rubbish, but that is just going to rest in there. And then finally, you're going to want to take these here, angle them outwards just like that, kind of creating the front of the cannon. And then as we flip this around, that is the cannon mode for Jetpower Optimus Prime. Now this does not like to stay together at all, so that does kind of suck in my opinion, but that's supposed to be the gun. And I mean, is it better than the standard Studio Series version? A little bit. I mean, it's not as heavy, but still doesn't look like much. And just to show you how it looks once pegged onto Prime, we do just slide those up. I guess you could also take these pieces and fold those down, and there we have the Jetpower cannon. And as per movie accuracy, bits just want to pop off. Now, if I'm going to be honest, I mean, this looks okay. To me, it's a throwaway mode. It's a nice bonus mode that they just packed in there to make this figure slightly more enjoyable. Is it one that I'm likely to go back to after I film this review? Probably not. I mean, it doesn't really look accurate to the film at all. The legs are probably the best part, although they are super fiddly in themselves. The cannon, much like the original Studio Series version, is just ridiculous, as Prime can't even hold it and can barely stand up with it pegged on. And the back kibble management, I think, is atrocious. But if you like to get the most enjoyability out of your figures, I guess this is a neat gimmick, but considering it's Toy World, I really wouldn't recommend playing with these all that much. To me, it makes more sense to actually take these sections, as they do have this tiny circular nub, and put them inverted so that the back is now facing the front, as they do grip in a little better, as that circle piece does kind of groove into the cutout that we have on the arm. So let's just see how this looks. Slide this here over, and already it is gripping in a little better. And to me, that kind of creates that flared out look that Jetpower Prime actually had in the movie. So do the same here for this side. Let's just fold this panel here over the top of the shoulder. And to me, that is a much better configuration than having them facing out in the back. And they actually hold on a little better too. And dare I say, look slightly cooler. And so, some final thoughts for the ToyWorld SKYBURST WW1 Jetfire. In all, it is a decent piece. I mean, it's what you would expect from ToyWorld. Amazing looking figure and pretty decent paint, besides the absence of some nice metallic silver in the bot mode, but really bad QC. I mean, this figure is just not fun to handle at all, especially in the robot mode and even the Jetpower Prime configuration. I think that it's detrimental that they never had any ratchet joints in the ankles. This guy is pretty top heavy, and I know it's movie accurate for Jetfire to be continuously falling over, etc., but for a figure which costs around $150 to $160, they really should have made sure that at least their tolerances were correct. I mean, this thing certainly isn't cheap. I know it's supposed to scale with Studio Series, but it is supposed to be better quality, and I just don't think in terms of the joints that it is. But with that being said, the Battleship mode looks excellent. Probably the best alt mode that I've seen from ToyWorld so far. Despite the ship looking so wicked, the transformation actually isn't that complex. It's more just fiddly than anything, and the robot mode does look like Jetfire from the Transformers 2 film, so I thought that was pretty cool how they were able to accomplish that. And then the Jetpower Prime mode, to me, it's just a throwaway thing that they packed in there to make this guy slightly more enjoyable, but in execution doesn't work out the best. Things don't like to stay tabbed in all that well. I think the back configuration is just atrocious, and much like the original Studio Series version, the cannon is just way too big. So with all that being said, unless you are set on finishing off some of these World War 1/2 characters by ToyWorld, I think you can perhaps give this an easy miss, and instead just hunt down the Hasbro Studio Series Jetfire, as in terms of quality, I'd actually say it's a little better than this guy. If you are looking to add this to the collection, I will be sure to pack a link down in the description box below, and until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.